The recording is on. Transcript is on. So we can continue with the second module of today. The second module of today is anything to do with subscriptions. This is not in the sales flow anymore. We created the product, we placed the order, we had a payment, we did provision, we received our invoice. Maybe we are also in the second or third month, so we have those recurring billing events that are working. So from now on, we have a subscription. What can you do with subscriptions? What information can you get out of those subscriptions? And what is relevant to know about those subscriptions? That is what we're talking about. Again, concepts, workspace, and then the operations. This one is a little bit longer when it comes to the concepts. There's a lot to talk about because subscriptions are, of course, the key thing that we have when it comes to subscriptions. And when we're looking at the operations, there's a lot to talk about and a lot of things to demonstrate. So that I think that this is about the longest module of the training. So let's start with those concepts that we have. So the first thing you need to know is, what do we consider a subscription? Because you need to know what our definition is to know what you can find in that subscription object. So for us, a subscription is an object in the platform that contains all the information about the service ordered by the customer. What does that mean? It does mean that I can find information about pricing, because that's what the customer pays for that service. For how long did this customer subscribe to it? What is the billing model that the customer chose, if there was a choice? What type of service is it when it what billing model does the subscription have, etc., etc., etc. All those choices that we set up in the service plan, as well as all the items that we have handled with payments, etc., will all be bound to that subscription in the platform. So what are we looking at? Like I said, we've got the subscription service. What did the customer buy? How long did he buy it for? If this is already a subscription that the customer uses for a longer time, you will find the life cycle in there. You will find all the billing orders. You will find change orders in the subscription. You will find eventual renewal orders, etc., etc. All that information is in the subscription. And then we have what we call the service terms. The service terms is something that I will explain a little bit later, but it comes down to what happens if the subscription ends and is not automatically or manually renewed. What are the stages after, let's say, subscription ending, and how can you configure that? So the first thing is the subscription service. When you plug a device into an outlet, it does not necessarily mean that the device will start functioning immediately. Sometimes you need to do an extra step to switch it on. In the rest of the cases, you just wait until it boots to get access to that system. Well, actually, that's how a subscription works. It's needed to create a service, to activate that service and make it accessible for the consumer. So that is what we call subscription service. So subscription service would be if I subscribe to my first Office 365 service plan with an E5 license. The system will first have to generate my tenant on Microsoft, where it maybe adds my vanity domain. And after that, it has to supply me with a license that I can assign to one of my users, to my end users. So that is what the subscription service has to offer. And in my environment, in my subscription environment in Cloud Blue, you will be able to see two types of status. And that's I would almost say, an interesting given, because why would we want two statuses? Is the subscription status not enough? No, it's not enough. We will see later when we're looking at the subscription life cycle and more specifically at the service terms, that there might be changes and differences between those two. So what are those statuses? The first one is the subscription status. Subscription status means that the subscription is ready for billing operations. So this is more of an internal status for our platform. If this subscription status is active, it simply means that, okay, we have gone through the entire sales order process. We have given the customer access to it. So now we can start billing it in a recurring way. The service status is the status of the customer service. That sounds like a very big open door, but what does it mean? Well, these two at least work a little bit aligned. So we have an ordered subscription. That means that the service is not provisioned yet. We are in the process of getting it provisioned. Eventually, that subscription will go to the active state, which means that the service will now show as running. And then there are other statuses at the subscription and other statuses at the service. We will see those the moment we're going to talk about the service terms. So most of them, they are similar. And let me show you where I can find that information. Here in billing, there is the subscriptions option under operations, and you will see a status, which is the subscription status, and you will see a service status, running. And in this case, everything is up and running. So there are no strange subscriptions except for this one, where we have an ordered and a not provisioned. So that is exactly the initial status that we have here. It could mean that provisioning did not work correct. That means I have to look at the sales order to see what the actual reason is that it's ordered or not provisioned. It could also mean that that sales order is still in the new status and somebody has to kick it through to the open status. I don't know that yet. I have to investigate. But it's good to know that these statuses might need to be investigated. So I'm going to the in-house products. I'm going to look at the order. And I see that that order is indeed in the new status. So if I open that order, click open, it should provision. I'm leaving it for demonstration purposes, but the fact that I don't see it as active and running means that I have to investigate at least something. Service provisioning. Depending on the subscription service status, there may be an action that needs to be completed by the system or by the customer. I just showed you that, right? It could mean that it is that you need to approve it for processing. Somebody, it went through fraud screening and the system decided that it is fraud, and now you look into it and say, no, this is a valid order, so I'm approving it, approved for processing. It could also be that there is a lot of manual action required that where I would mark it as completed or mark it as failed. Why would you want to do it? Because, for instance, there is no real integration with that product. So when the customer places an order, I receive an email and I'm going to have to fix it. Or the remote system does not give good feedback. We can tell that it needs to provision something, but it doesn't give us the correct feedback whether it was successful or not. So we make sure that before we complete the sales order, we have somebody look at it, and that person now needs to mark this as completed when it was successful or mark it as failed. I don't like that last option because I'd rather say, hey, if it fails, go troubleshoot until it's completed and then go back in and mark it as completed. But there could be a reason to mark it as failed. I'm not sure why, but that is that's the thing. Another thing we see is the subscription period. Like I said, if a customer buys it for a year, we will see that it was purchased for a year. We also see what options there are. Free trials is an option. Longer periods for better deals, for instance. Different types of fees for services are there. So everything that we discussed in the service plans, setting up a service plan module, come back into that subscription because all this information is there. Subscription period is the amount of time the customer will be using this chosen service plan. This is the contract period. The other thing we will see is the billing period. Remember this story when we were talking about it, the moment we were talking about setting up that service plan. You have a billing period. How often does the customer pay? And the subscription period. What is the contract period of this customer for this plan? And of course, this depends on a couple of sayings. Monthly, quarterly, so depending on the setting again. What I failed to understand in this slide is this is not the choice of the customer. This is the choice of the product management, right? Be aware that this is not something the customer can select. Well, there might be two plans where the one is quarterly payments and the other is monthly payments. But the fact that those two plans are there means that product development or the product management team from your company decided that those are the two options that we're going to offer. And then the customer chooses which one he wants, and then he chooses his subscription period. If we know the subscription period, we also know that we have a life cycle there. Life cycle is this story. We've seen the slide before. We have a sales order. What happens? The first subscription period starts. And if the customer wants to keep using it, we need to somehow tell commerce that it wants to continue by setting up a renewal order. Like I said before, that could be automatic, that could be manual. Could be at the end of the subscription period, could also be that halfway this subscription, the customer decides that, hey, this is a cool thing. Let's keep it for another year. Now there is a nice campaign with a nice discount. Let's buy it for another year. It doesn't need to be at the end of the period. If I renew here, it automatically extends after the end date. So it doesn't renew from here. It renews from the end date for the next subscription period. Key thing. Of course, somewhere you could also cancel the subscription. And also that is showing in your life cycle in billing of those subscriptions. We don't throw away subscriptions in billing. Why not? Because it is also considered a bookkeeping system, meaning that once you have earned money on a product, we don't want to throw that object away. And of course, we have our billing periods. There we are with our billing orders. Everything that we see here and what we saw earlier will be in that subscription. So let me quickly go in and show you. If I have a decent subscription that is working, let me see. These are all sales orders, I think. Here's my subscription. I see that it's active and running, that there is a recurring fee of $1. That the last synchronization date, the last day that this subscription was invoiced was 11th of March, that the next billing date is the 11th of April. Why? Because we have a charge before billing period billing model, and the billing period is a month. So that means every month we charge a single dollar to this account. How long do we do that? for 10 years. That means that in this case, there will probably not be that many orders, only the sales order. If we're a month further, half a month further even, we will see that there are billing orders under here. Multiple billing orders because those billing orders appear on a monthly basis. Since the platform isn't that old, I probably will not be able to show you all those billing orders because we are not even a month in the life cycle of this platform. Let me quickly check if I have another demonstration platform. No, yeah. Oh. Go to the login page. Oh, this is this one. Isn't that interesting? Do I have another one? Here we are. Oh, cool. Account is disabled. Cool. Somebody has messed with my login. Don't like that. Here we are. Let me go to the classic panel. Here I am a reseller, but this account lives a little bit longer, but there's not that much. Here also we have a sales order with a provisioning failed. So I do not have a demonstration set that has billing orders. It's a shame, but it's expected. Lifecycle stages, we also might have change orders along the way. We discussed that when we discussed orders here. And then we've got service terms. And this is a key thing to understand, because what are service terms? The service term is the definition of how subscriptions are processed and what is processed when they expire mainly. What does that mean? Well, I can set up 2 periods and a checkbox about what happens when the subscription reaches his end date and it does not have a renewal order at that point. So basically the customer does not want to renew it or forgot to renew it. What happens at that point? Well, we have, like I said, 2 periods to define. The first one is the grace period. And the grace period is a setting in days during which the subscription will remain active, meaning that the customer can still log into it, can still use it. He cannot change it, but he can still use it for that number of days. Customer does not pay for that. So that is also something to take into account. You have to, I would almost say, align this setting with what the vendor is doing. As far as I know, for instance, for Microsoft 365, we have a 30-day grace period, meaning that when the subscription ends, the customer still can enter his subscription for 30 days. And as far as I know as well, we can try to make it shorter, we can try to make it longer, but Microsoft doesn't listen to us. So I would say align what you have with what the vendor is doing, because we can try to send a stop signal to that subscription for this scenario, but the system will not accept it. Microsoft does it this way, period. The other period that we can configure is the hold period. The hold period is how long the data will remain on the vendor system after stopping it. So first we have the grace period. Let's say that's 30 days. And after those 30 days, the hold period starts. So if we look at a Microsoft policy, we have 30 days of grace. And as far as I know, still, it's 90 days hold, meaning that after the subscription end date, the data of that customer still resides on the system of Microsoft for 120 days. The first 30 days, it's still accessible. The 90 days after that, it's not accessible. But the advantage could be that if I need information from that data, I can spin up that subscription again by, let's say, taking a monthly subscription to it and then canceling that one. And then the last setting is, I would almost say, a historic setting, because in 99 out of 100 use cases, we don't have influence on it anymore. Because the setting is destroy service after hold. And as far as I know, all vendors, all cloud vendors, after the hold period will destroy the data because it is taking up space that is not paid for. So there is no business incentive after that hold period to keep that data stored on their systems in a paid scenario, in an unpaid scenario. So I would again align this with what the vendor is doing, meaning that for a Microsoft setting, I would say grace period 30, hold period 120, and I would check the box for destroy service after hold. And why would I do it exactly the same as the vendor does? Because I know what the vendor is doing and I don't care because I want to see in Cloud WooCommerce what the status is of that service, because the screens and the statuses of the service as well as the subscription will still reflect in Cloud WooCommerce. So if a customer calls me and says, hey, I forgot to renew my subscription, I don't have access to it anymore, but I want to renew, or I want to reach that data. You can go in and look at that subscription, and based on the statuses that I will show you in the next two slides, you can decide whether or not it's still a possibility that he can recover his data. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the service terms, as I said. What are the service terms? The service terms are those three fields. I will show you where to set them up in a second. But how do they reflect on that subscription lifecycle? Because that is now the key thing. During a normal subscription period, the subscription status is active. Let's assume that the customer normally pays, right? Because let's not go for exceptions. And the service status is running, meaning that everything is green. Customer can go into his subscription, can receive email on Microsoft, can send email, etc., etc. So normally you would expect a renewal order here because the customer likes the service, etc. Let's say that renewal order is not there. So what happens then? Well, in the case of a grace period, the subscription status will now not show active, but it will show graced. However, the service status is still running. Like I said, in the grace period, the customer can go into his service as if nothing changed, as if everything is normal. He can send email, he can receive email. Like I also said, he cannot change the subscription anymore because now he's in an exceptional status. For changing, adding licenses, removing licenses, etc., upgrading, the subscription needs to be active. At this point, at the end of the grace period, the hold period starts. The hold period means we stop the service, but we still have the data on it. Subscription status shows as expired. The service status shows as stopped. Meaning we still have data, but the user cannot access it anymore without renewing his subscriptions. And he can renew it at this point if he wants to. He needs to call support that revives that subscription, but that's what happens. He can do that. after this period, there is a little checkbox possible in the service terms. And that checkbox says, let me go there quickly, destroy service after hold. If that checkbox is set, the system will destroy the data. So we're in this line, let's say. If that checkbox is not set, we end up here. So this is the empty box. This is the checkbox. In both scenarios, the subscription will show as terminated. So terminated means you have gone through graced, you have gone through expired, and you are in the terminated state. Whether or not a subscription is revivable depends on the service status. If the data is still there, I can revive that service. If there is no data, there is nothing to revive. So that's the key thing. And from that perspective, I think that 120 days is quite a interesting time, because if somebody comes a third of a year later or more than a third of a year later and wants his subscription revived, he has been sleeping in the last 120 days. And in that case, his data is gone. Microsoft does not make backups. If that customer does not have a backup of his data, he will not be able to recover his information, because the data will be removed after those 120 days from here. Because this is what I refer to. This is those number of days. And for Microsoft, this amount is 120. That is how service terms function. So eventually, when the data is gone, and I think that most vendors do that, they might have fairly long retention days, retention periods, or as we call it, hold periods. But after that, they just throw away the data. There's no incentive for them to keep that information, at least not when there is no legislation forcing them to keep it longer. The first thing I want to show you is I want to show you how to set a service term. Why am I doing that? Because I think that we've all been there already, part of it, because this is again a term. In the last session, we talked about credit terms, and here we have our service terms. Adding a new service term gives me the opportunity to set a grace period, to set a hold period, and check that box, destroy service after hold. You see it twice. Why? Well, one is for the paid subscription, the normal subscription, and the other setting is for a trial subscription. If a trial subscription is not renewed into a paid subscription, probably there's no need to keep data or give the customer access to it. So he has 1 day, maybe that's too little. Maybe you want 5 days, let's say a work week, for this trial subscription, so that he did not know it was expiring in the weekend. So give him the opportunity to, on Monday, to fix it. But when we're talking about a Microsoft subscription, this is how I would set it up. And trial, again, I would look at the policy that Microsoft has. This is just my own incentive, my own thought on how I would do it. I'm not sure how Microsoft set trial subscription policies. How do you assign a policy? By going and adding a new service plan, And here is your service terms. Here you select it. So that's the service term part. For the rest, we're talking about operations with subscription. So that whole scenario of service terms is part of the subscription, but is not the workspace that we're looking at. This is the workspace that we're looking at, and be aware that you can. I would almost say you can mess with yourself, because we have that same thing in operations as well, but you see other information. In this case, we see a subscription status and provisioning status. And besides that, I see it from all customers instead of only from my customers. Let's do a vendor service pro. Now I see it from all my customers. Here it is. Subscription is enabled and completed. That's not the one I wanted to see. But they're all enabled and completed, which is nice, but it does not give me the opportunity to expand on something. I will talk about something a little bit later. But in billing, that's what the version that we are talking about, because this is where you can upgrade, downgrade, etc., etc. This is your workspace. This is where you see and open your orders or your subscriptions with all that information, 10 years, etc. Right? We have our subscription workspace, and here you see in the screenshot, and that's why this time I go for a screenshot. I hope that I had some stuff to show that you can have different scenarios. Terminated and stopped, terminated and stopped. Where are we? We are here, terminated and stopped. We're in this moment. That means that for these subscriptions can still be revived because there is still data. I'm sorry, I need to go forward here. We've got somebody on credit hold, and the scary one here is that one. That should never happen. So this would require some kind of troubleshooting, because a terminated subscription should not be running. It should either be stopped or it should be destroyed, meaning that the service has been deleted, all the data. Under operations in billing, you will find that info. The moment I click a subscription, we get the information. By the way, the subscription will, let's say, copy the name of the service plan that the customer bought. So there was in this environment where we created the screenshots was a service plan called sample service plan. So the moment I create a subscription to it, it will have a sample service plan subscription name. And you see, it was a very popular product. If I click it, I get to the subscription information, as I showed you in a demo. I can renew from here. I can cancel from here. And I can, what we call, synchronize from here. What is synchronization? I will talk about it a little bit later, but now that we're mentioning those buttons, it's a good, it's an important thing to know what it does. If, for instance, I change the pricing of a service plan because the vendor added a nice feature or added a nice resource to it that comes for free, or free comes included, but the vendor also upped the price. An existing subscription will stay on the same price, but will also stay with the same content. So basically you can have, I would almost say, outdated subscriptions that do not have the latest features and the latest prices. The idea behind that is the customer signed a contract with you when he purchased this plan for a certain period, for that subscription period. If that subscription period is a year, the Cloud Blue platform is supposed to guarantee that the customer has the same price and the same service for that contract period. It might be that the customer does not care about that higher price because he would really love to have that additional component in there, because it's one of the things he has been waiting for a long time. Now he sees that it's there, and he just bought this subscription a month ago. And he's like, okay, how can I now make sure that I get that new feature? In that case, he can call support and he can have somebody synchronize his subscription. And when we're talking about synchronizing subscriptions, we are talking about pulling in the new things from the service plan into the existing subscriptions. And if I do this in a live scenario where I have a subscription that is actually actively running, let me do it here. If I synchronize it, I get to choose what is there. If this is that extra feature is a new resource, I have to, of course, make sure that he gets that new resource by installing that resource. Of course, if that comes with extra prices, I have to synchronize the prices as well. Otherwise, he really gets that new feature for free because he doesn't pay the new price, etc., etc., etc. Let's say Microsoft now has business subscriptions or business plans, and they support 400, a maximum of 400. I can still synchronize for those customers that have been waiting for this to happen, and we can only update the limits. For the rest, whatever you do, you can check everything, or you can just check a couple of things. Let's say Microsoft changes their service terms and they change it from 30 and 90 into 30 and 60. I would update the subscription service terms in this case. So that is what synchronization does. So before I continue, because there are no Q&A slides in here, I see a item that there is a question in there in the chat. If I have a subscription on credit hold or administrative hold, does it interfere with the terms of the service period? Insofar, no, because the subscription is still an active subscription. It's just stopped. That means that the end date does not change. It's getting interesting when that subscription is on credit hold or administrative hold, when the subscription would, let's say, end, because in that case, there cannot be a renewal order. Or there can be a renewal order, but it will go on the hold status. Remember that, right? When an order is on hold, it is probably because the customer is on hold. This is one of those scenarios. So this requires some care, because if you really have a big dispute with that customer about him paying or not paying, and he has a subscription that ends during that scenario, it might get destroyed, depending on whether or not the subscription end date or the current date would exceed the subscription date plus the grace period plus the hold period. So it is something to be aware of. It is also something to mention to your customers. It will not start the grace period and hold period the moment I stop that subscription because of credit hold and administrative hold. Does that answer your question, Pablo?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And then I have a hands up from Williams. Tell me.
Hi, Eric. My question is, it is possible to set some alert when a subscription pass into a specific stage? For example, when a subscription pass to grace period, is possible to configure an alert?
Let me show you that. Because yes, that is possible. It is something that we will look into. Let me see, when would we do that? That's the wrong one. I need to look it up in here. We would do that on day 4, a little bit more in depth. But what I can do, and that is where in the service plan, let me pull up the service plan. Let's take that one. We have a notification about service provisioning in there, but we also have a notification schedule here. Notification at service provisioning is, hey, your subscription is ready. So that's at the beginning. And this notification schedule happens at the end of the life cycle. So what I can do in this case, the schedule that is created or added is the hosting subscription expiration. Where do I do that? I do that in billing under system notifications, and here are my subscription expiration schedules. And the one that we had assigned is the hosting subscription. What do? We send a notification 15 days before the subscription expires and tell him, hey, your subscription is about to expire. Then we do that again 5 days before the end. When do we do that? Well, as long as the customer did not place a renewal order yet. So if the system sees a renewal order, good. Don't touch it. We don't have to send him this because he already acted on it. Then we do it on the day that the subscription expires. We send him a notification that his subscription has expired. And of course, this only happens if we reach that expiration date. If we do a renewal, that expiration date goes way further. And then let me pull up the slide that has that information in it. Here we go. So we send that one about it has expired. We send it here. Shift E. We do that here. At this moment, the service is stopped. We call it the shutdown date. So at the shutdown date, we tell the customer that the subscription has expired and it has stopped. So, hey, you remember we send you a couple of emails before that. Now you don't have access to it anymore. And the last one is called the termination date. This is the termination date. And we have 2 templates there. But if, for instance, we remove his data, we can send a notification that his subscription has expired and we have terminated his data. So yes, it is possible. We are going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in the first module of the fourth session, but it is possible. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. So what more questions do you have? If not, can I get a thumbs up? Okay, seeing thumbs coming up. Very good. So that means we can continue. Okay, so we looked at a couple of configurations that we can set, service terms. When we were looking at the service plan module, we discussed what other settings there are about billing, billing terms, billing period, subscription period, etc. All that is found in the subscription. But what can you do with a subscription? We looked at 1 or 2 of those things already. The first one is we can upgrade it. And for me, upgrading is has become a two-direction path, let's call it that way. Because an upgrade could be, we go from an E3 to an E5 subscription, or vice versa. We change the plan, actually. It could also mean we go from one resource to 3 resources. We both call that upgrades or changes. Depending on what you do, of course, what happens in the backend is different. And I hope that this happens a lot, renewing subscriptions. Because it means that your subscription, your service plans are the things that the customer likes and that the customer wants. So renewing a subscription is something we can do. Customer can cancel a subscription. Doesn't matter. Could be a trial subscription. Could also be that he wants something else. I discussed this one already. You can synchronize a subscription. And this one is a little bit tricky because it is not allowed on every single service. We do have the button in there, but not all services have the capability of being transferred. It might have to do with what integration you have. Is transferring a subscription taken into account in the integration between the Cloud Blue platform and the vendor? But it could also mean that there are so many things that are bound to a specific tenant in that subscription that you cannot transfer it to another tenant on the vendor side, that the vendor simply does not support it. So transferring of a subscription is the last thing I want to talk about. I will talk about it, but it's the last thing that I want to, because I know that there's a lot of caveats there. One example, for instance, would be if I have a Office 365 subscription that is coupled to a domain, and that domain ownership should not change. In that case, I cannot transfer the subscription because that domain is used for that Office 365 subscription. And you cannot, in the platform at least, you cannot have a domain owner on one side of the fence and a subscription that uses that domain on the other side of the fence. And of course, we can not only put a customer on hold, but we can also put a subscription on hold if we want to. And that whole cycle is exactly the same as putting the customer on hold. It can be put on credit hold. It could also be put on administrative hold. Here at the bottom, we've got the 2 buttons. Okay, so let's compare this whole story to the process of a gym membership. Probably most of us have been there and know somebody that has a membership. A membership is like a subscription, right? You pay on a monthly basis and you get to use the gym. It's the same thing with Office 365. You pay on a monthly basis and you get to use Office 365. So what can you do? For instance, most gyms, at least in the Netherlands, offer trial subscriptions. You get to know the machines, get used to the routine, decide whether it's something that you're looking for or that the location for this specific gym is good for you, etc., etc. Once you've decided that it's the right product, and probably when your free trial is over, you can upgrade to a paid one. That means you are going to buy a gym membership. So let's imagine that with your membership, you're given a locker to store your stuff while you're exercising. In most cases now, you have just carry a lock, but let's say they have lockers and you get assigned a dedicated locker. Very useful, but as time goes by, you realize that you need a bit more space because either you go before work or you come there right after work on your way home. That means you have more than just your gym bag and your clothes. You might have your motorcycle helmet. You might have an extra change of clothes. You might want to change, store your laptop, etc. That means that the initial locker is not big enough to store all your things, so you ask for more space. That means that you change your resource limit. You go up, you upsize, let's call it. This is a little bit where upsizing and upgrading mix. Sometimes we discuss upsizing, and this would be upsizing. And the next thing is upgrading. Your subscription includes only the machine room. So all the machines where you can do that. And you decide that this is interesting and I want to keep doing that, but these guys have a pool as well. And maybe in the morning, I'd like to just swim a couple of laps, and then in the afternoon do the heavy lifting, etc., etc. However, that's a different subscription. That's a different gym membership. So you change your service plan. This is what most people would call an upgrade. If you don't like the swimming pool and you just want to go back to the machine room, the heavy lifting stuff, you downgrade the service plan. In both cases, it's a change order. Just like the resource limit, right? That's also a change order, if we refer to this from an order perspective. During the subscription, you've been charged on the same date, but that date is no longer convenient for you. You want to be charged on a new date without paying an additional fee. At that point, this is a little bit weird example, but you can change the expiration date. Or because of COVID, and maybe a better and at this moment relevant or at least past relevant example would be, because of COVID, the gym was closed and you only use 6 months of your annual subscription, gym membership. So after COVID, you say, hey guys, I want to keep using this gym for those 6 months that I was not able to use my membership. In that case, you can change the expiration date. I could also change a parent subscription. Let's say this gym is from a chain, and the one that I have is for the gym near my house. They open up a new one close to the office, which is more convenient if for during the week. But I have to, let's say, do an additional fee for using that other gym. We would say that the original gym membership is the parent subscription, and you pay a subsequent additional fee on top of that to be able to visit other gyms. So you have your own gym, but you do have the possibility on a additional fee, that's a different subscription, to use other gyms from that same chain. And of course, at some point, you might want to decide that I want to change the subscription period. So far, I did a month-by-month subscription. And I've noticed that, hey, I'm definitely going on a weekly basis, or maybe even on a daily basis. I've got that rhythm in there, and I see that the annual subscription is a little bit cheaper on a monthly basis. So instead of doing the monthly subscription, I change the subscription period to an annual subscription, saving some money. That could be interesting as well. Those are all the changes. So what are we talking about? We can upgrade scenarios. Like I said, upgrading are two options. The first one would be a change order for the resources. That's what we call an upsize, but in the documentation, it's still called an upgrade. Going to another service plan is also an upgrade. both result in what we call a change order. So in the case of the resource limit, what happens is, and there was a question about it a little bit earlier, the recurring fee of the new resource is, of course, charged in that change order, but also there could be a resource downgrade in the change order. So everything will be prorated. If, for instance, in my subscription, there was a fee for the small locker, and halfway of the month I go to the bigger locker, I get the small locker back for the rest of the month, and I'm paying for the larger locker for the rest. Of course, from a net perspective, it only looks like I'm paying for the difference between small and large locker. But under the hood, the system will do the math by giving you the small locker back and charging you for the bigger locker for the rest of the month. That is what you will see in the change order. So what do I see in the change service plan itself? Again, it results in a change order. That is simple. What do I get? The plan recurring fee of the original plan is refunded to me, prorated, and I'm paying for the rest of the month for that new one. If there are additional resources in there, the same thing happens. And those two numbers make it to the change order. So this could even mean that there are, under the hood, 4 calculations done. Refund of original plan, charge for new plan, prorated, refund for original resources, and charge for new resources. You won't see everything in those items. Sometimes you do, depending on how it is configured, but the change order will take all that into account. Of course, we can also do a trial to paid. Also, that is called an upgrade. So what are we charging you? Well, only the recurring fee for the paid plan, nothing more, nothing less. Those are the changes. Then we have a renewal order. You're happy with the subscription, you sign up for another year. In this case, you want an annual subscription, you just renew it. How do you do that? You can do it manual. And in our case of the gym, you go to the counter and say, hey, my subscription is about to end. Can you extend it for another year? Same thing happens with our control panel. A customer can just go into his customer control panel and press the button renew. But it could also be automatic. The gym says, if you don't tell us to stop it at the end, we will automatically renew. And that's the same with our products. If we do it automatic, we can even configure when it's done. We can set a before expiration time. So do we want it 3 days before expiration, on the expiration date itself? Do we want to do that on the last billing day of that subscription? So we do have monthly payments, and the last monthly payment, I first renew the subscription and then do the monthly payment for the rest of that month. So, or do we do that on the last statement day? When it comes from trial to paid, we can also assume that there is an automatic or manual renewal. That's not true. Manual renewal of a trial subscription with an activated automatic mode is not possible. That means that we can set automatic renewal. That means that I have to just wait until that renewal has been done. I cannot decide earlier. That sounds a little bit strange, but that's how it is. The alternative is cancel the trial and manually order a new paid one. The downside of that is you will lose the data. So trial to paid can be done automatically and can be done manually. but only manually if there is no automatic foreseen. As a result of the subscription renewal, the renewal order is created in billing, of course. So what is in there? Well, anything that needs to be done. The recurring fee of a service plan when it is before subscription period, and of course the renewal fee. If this is a before billing period, you will only see the renewal fee in the renewal order, and besides the renewal order, there will be a billing order that charges for those items. So it depends on what subscription model it is, what billing model it is, billing model it is. Is it before subscription period? I see this. If it is before billing period, I have at the same moment, I have a renewal order and a billing order. Renewal order charges for the renewal fee, and the billing order, my mouse does it again. My billing order charges for the recurring fees. We also have the cancellation. The cancel of a subscription, of course, fairly simple. Cancel subscription. Be aware that we cannot schedule a cancellation at this moment from a customer perspective. So if I cancel a subscription, it is now. Not at the end of the month, it's now. Canceling a subscription, of course, gives me a cancellation order. What does that mean? It means that if configured, if there are recurring fees and you have set this service plan with refunds are allowed, I get the money back for the rest of my subscription that I paid for. Why do I add that last bit? Because if I do monthly payments and I end it halfway, let's say the month, 3 months before it ends, I only paid for that one single month too much, and I get only that part of the month back. If I have a before subscription period, I get everything back. Prorated. However, you can charge a cancellation fee if needed, if you want to. So you cancel, you pay for that. The final amount will, of course, be the sum, or let's say the most logical calculation of the refunds minus the cancellation fee. So I get money back, I have to pay money. That means if I set no refund, this one will be 0, and I will need to pay only my cancellation fee, depending on the scenario, of course. And we've got the synchronization. I discussed the synchronization already. When would we want to do that? For instance, when there are new resource limits. Let's say Microsoft decided that for business subscriptions, now the limit is 400 instead of 300. When Microsoft decided that in this plan, we don't have these add-ons anymore. Or when we set new prices and we want that to happen straight away. And that's the key thing. All of these are when you want the existing subscriptions to be affected by these changes on this day. If not, you can just wait for those subscriptions to renew, automatic renewal, and at that moment, the new information will be implemented. So when would this be interesting? For instance, for setting new prices, it would be interesting if you have a very volatile exchange rate, and if you don't change the price now, you will run into a loss per subscription that is already running. So I would, in that case, synchronize everything. So you set those prices so that you still make some kind of profit with those subscriptions. like I said, this is something I would not prefer to talk about that much. I'm going back to that at the end of this whole story, because like I said, this depends on the subscription service. This depends on a lot of things, but it might not be automatically possible. So we know it's a feature that we have, but this is very, very much vendor dependent. So I want to talk about putting on hold a subscription first. So what is putting on hold a subscription? Just like we discussed in our story about the credit hold for the customer, the subscriptions act the same way. There is a caveat here, and let me go back to that question here. If I have a subscription on, let me get it again. If I have a subscription on credit hold or administrative hold, does it interfere with the terms of the service period? In general, like I said, no. However, there is a vendor, it's not the smallest one, it's called Microsoft, that does not have a difference in stop a service because a customer canceled it, or stop a service because the customer did not pay. We try to suspend a service. That's a different API method. Suspend means it's not the end of the life cycle of this subscription, but we do want you to not give a customer access to it. That means that there is an opposite API method that allows me to resume that service. Microsoft only accepts stopping. The problem is that from a Microsoft perspective, at this point here, the hold period starts. That means that this customer now has 90 days to fix his dispute with you, to get either his service up and running again, or that he has 90 days to pay his invoice. Because otherwise, the subscription will go into the terminated state, and it gets and the data will be destroyed. So that is the thing that's based on the question from who asked it, William, I think. No, Pablo. There is a nuance to my answer. Most vendors that have been in the cloud business longer understand that there is a difference between stopping a service and suspending a service. Too bad that Microsoft isn't one of them. So for Microsoft, you have to keep in the back of your head, if you have a customer that is, for whatever reason, on hold for longer than 90 days, that you spin him up for a minute and shut him down again, because at that moment, the clock starts ticking again. Is that something you can live with, Pablo, as an addition to the answer?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. This is one of the things that we did also not know initially, and we noticed this because our partners started complaining about it. We work with Microsoft a lot to fix this, but they simply have not implemented any API call or status in the subscriptions that talks about suspend. For them, a stop is a stop. That means 90 days and it's over. Okay. Now let me quickly go back to the thing I didn't want to talk about, transferring a subscription. Why would you want to do that? Well, let's go back to our friend Michael to explore it. Remember Michael, our rose vendor? Michael's doing very well with his flower business. He expanded a lot over the past year. He's now selling around the world and even has people reselling his flowers in some countries. And what do we have? We have Clara and Pedro. They're in Spain. They're Michael's resellers. They were doing pretty well, but felt like making a change. So they decided to transfer their subscriptions to Michael itself. So that would mean transferring all their information like order, services, and users to Michael. Before transferring a subscription, both vendor and reseller account must meet the following requirement. And that is a key thing. So when you have met most of these statuses, you can start investigating if transfer is possible. Again, it's not a guarantee that transfer is possible. The first thing, both accounts, the vendor and the reseller, must have the same vendor and brand. So they should be in the same hierarchy, that's the same vendor, but they also should have the same brand. In this case, Michael's brand. Then the subscriptions must not be in intermediate statuses. So WP is not an option, waiting for payment. They have to be at least in the provisioned status. If it is delayed payment, it might be that these guys are, or that they're not in completed, but in that case, they are in WZ. There it is. Waiting for a consolidated invoice status. That means that the provisioning is completed. The service is up and running. The only thing we did not do is generate an invoice yet. If that's the case, we can try to transfer. Like I said, this is where we can try to transfer. The problem might be that other things are blocking it. Domain ownership, that has to stay with the original reseller. A service that does not support transfer. That's the easiest, maybe. There are other scenarios. I see that there is a hand up. I'm coming to that one in a second. Let me first finish this slide. A customer's department spins out from the mother company to become a separate firm. And that customer wants to move some of the subscriptions to the new account. That's where it would be a logical scenario to look at it. An alternative would be the other way around. Two client companies that are with the same reseller merge into one, and they want to consolidate everything. A customer changes their legal name, and that means they want to have a new vendor, a new customer account in this. Okay, let's do a new customer account and move everything there. In this case, I might consider discussing with that customer that we also, for the sake of history of all his subscriptions and payments, etc., that we just change the original account. Move DNS or move out. The move out is a real end customer wants to leave it pseudo reseller. The customer to be creates a separate customer account with the vendor and asks to move all its subscriptions to this account. Of course, again, all this only works if the service supports it. And there is no real list of, hey, these services support transfer, these services do not support transfer. You have to look at that at a service by service basis, looking at the requirements of the vendor itself, etc. Okay, let me see. I see a hand up. Ana Paula, tell me.
I have a cute scenario for you. You like it. So
Tell me.
I am a provider, right?
Yeah.
And I want to create a new reseller. The thing is, I am a provider that have a reseller subscriptions under my account because I do not have a reseller right now. So I want to separate these subscriptions and these accounts because they are accounts from this reseller, and I want to create a new reseller and put these accounts and subscriptions into this reseller and separate them from my pool of accounts and subscriptions. Can I do that? And how can I do that? I know I have the, I understand I have some restrictions that I have to be aware of. So maybe I will not be able to transfer all accounts and subscriptions, but would I be able to at least try to transfer some or most of my subscriptions and accounts this way?
From a product perspective, I would say, yes, you can do that. I can go in here and in this case, I would not work with subscriptions. I would try to transfer customers.
Yes,
because
that's the idea.
that is the key thing, right?
Yeah.
And with the customer, we also transfer the all its subscriptions. So I can try that by going to the respective customer, click transfer, who's the new distributor, transfer everything or only the subscriptions, next, finish. That is one option.
Yeah.
The tricky part in this will be the customers where it's not possible. So is this in that case an impossibility? No, it's not. What we can do from our professional services and our technical service engineering, we can migrate customers. We can migrate them from one platform to another, but also from one distributor to another using scripts that do not touch the UI, but touch the backend to fix every one of those items. So is it possible to do this? Yes. But in that case, I would maybe even go for the TSC approach in the first place, because in that case, you know that everything will be, first of all, migrated. That's the key thing. Everything that you want migrated to that new distributor or that new reseller will be migrated. And second is you don't have to first try yourself everything and have every customer in your hand and then saying, okay, this one worked, this one didn't work, with maybe even things that you think have worked but have not worked. So I would go for a solution that it is a paid solution, absolutely, but it has more advantages than disadvantages from when you want to do it yourself. Would that answer your question, Ana Paula?
Yeah, I have another one. Do you know if you have an API to do that? Because the thing is, all of the for these, I have two resellers in this case, but one is like they have 10 subscriptions, so it's easy to work. The other one has like 2,000 subscriptions, so it's a little bit harder.
Yeah,
but
no,
they
the
all
thing
have
is
the same product. It's all the same. It's all Microsoft and it's all apps for business ones. So if it works for one, it will work for all of them. You know what I mean?
The thing
So
is, we
if
don't
I
have
have the
just
API,
an API. We don't have just an API.
we have to use the screen to do all of them. I have to use the UI. Is that it? Is that it? We don't have the API, just the UI to do that. For us.
For you, yes, you have the UI to do it. If you
But
let
not
us
the
do
API.
it, we have scripts available.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah, and,
So
and
there
basically
isn't
what
an
we
API.
do is we use information from the from the partner center to get information in. What we probably would do is we would cancel the existing subscriptions in our platform, but not in Microsoft, and then import the news into the new users as a migration order. But
I don't need to, I don't need to touch partner center in this case. I'm just changing because it's all the same. I just need to change the account. The account, not the account for the customer, but the upper account for the customer, which is the reseller.
Yeah, and there we don't.
There's no
the
need to
problem is
touch
we don't have
partner center.
we don't have an API for that.
Yeah, and what this one does here is just change it, right? If I do go here, it will just change here in Cloudblue, right? It will not touch.
Yeah, as long as services support it. Like I said, it might be that the integration component that we have with Microsoft, the Microsoft connector, will not support this transfer.
I got it.
Because-
So I'll have to test with one of them and then
Yeah.
see if it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so. I thought it would be something like that. But since it's all of them have the same, service and resource, actually it's even the same resource and plan,
Yeah,
then, if it works for one, it should work for everybody.
true.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's 2000, so 2000 by hand, it's a hassle.
That's
Okay.
not a funny thing. No.
But it's doable.
Absolutely.
We're not yet doable, but it's a hassle. Thank
Um,
you.
There are ways to script the UI, right? You know that.
Yeah, I know.
So maybe that's in that case, if one works, that would be maybe my way to go
Yeah, I
and say,
know.
hey, these
I saw
2000.
that. I saw that before. There is even documentation in CloudBlue site, I believe. I remember
Yeah.
seeing documentation about
There is
that. How
something there.
to,
Yeah. Yeah.
how to script the screen so that you use the screen, you just automate things in the screen. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Yeah, you telling me, I remember that because I totally forgotten about that before you telling me. Just to be honest, I know it exists, but I forgot that it existed. Thank you for the
Perfect.
reminder.
Yeah, you're welcome. Always good. So what more questions are there? If not, let me go to the scenarios. Change the subscription expiration date. Let's say either something was misconfigured or like I discussed with that COVID scenario, I bought my subscription half a year before COVID started. And after COVID, I'm saying, hey, I paid everything up front. I want to keep using the last 6 months of my subscription now that I'm allowed to go to the gym again. How do I do that? I can go into the subscription itself. And this is the user. Sorry, I need to go to the subscription. Let me take any subscription in this case. Where is it? Expiration date. Here we have the change the expiration date. So if you press this button, this date will be changed. There will not be an order. So you have to somehow make a note why you did this. Because there will not be a renewal order. There will not be a change order. This is just changing a field in the database by the UI. So in that case, maybe it's good to set a note that you change this because of ABC. Renew a subscription. What do? Well, you click that button. You can renew. We saw that button already. It's up here. That's the most important button. It's top left-hand corner. Then we have the upgrade. The resources are no longer enough. You can upgrade your subscription resources. So I go into my subscription, go to my resources, and change the number if possible. I don't have any subscriptions that allow for this. Let me see if I have a subscription that has end users. Where is my global services? That's the good one. Let me log in as that customer. Do I have customers here? Yeah, I've got customers and they all have no subscriptions. So that's a useful reseller to have. An easier point to find something like this sometimes is operations. I go to resellers here. We see how many customer subscriptions there are. So it makes it easier to select the correct one. Let's take Brazil and log in as that reseller. So I clicked that one wrong. Let's go to Brazil. Log in as that reseller. Go to billing. We've got one customer here with no subscription. That's strange. Oh, this reseller himself has all those subscriptions. Always good. That's weird because it says customer
For Brazil,
subscription.
it's all messed up.
Yeah. That's weird because it says customer subscriptions 12. Let me go there again. Okay, billing. Customers. Oh, they're one level down. Peter Herman Rip. Classic. Customers. Now we have customers, no subscriptions. It's always good, this. This is such a
A
messy.
reseller under a reseller, is that it?
Yeah, that's
Nice. I didn't
always
know that
possible.
was possible. Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
you can have as many levels as you want.
Oh, it's a tree.
Yeah, it's a tree. So you could have your provider, then you have your first level resellers, which is the countries. And then you can have departments even. And then you can have competing resellers on top of that. So you can
Got it.
have as many layers as you want.
Okay, got it. Not that I think I will use it, but good to know.
Yep. So let me find a subscription that might be of interest that is not a reseller subscription. In operations, I'm going for subscriptions. Now we have 243 to search for, and we have a lot of auto reseller, auto reseller, auto reseller, auto reseller. Those are all resellers. Let me go to the last page. We've got Adobe VIP. There we have it. Okay, let's go there. Let's go for the account and let's log in as the customer. Here we have the customer. We can advise the customer to go to that subscription. And we have some included services here. I've got another one here, only commercial. Here I can manage the subscription, where I see what is included. A lot of information, always good. Subscription history. I can view what's there, which items this customer purchased. And I go to automatically to those. Admin console allows you to assign those licenses, also allows you in this case to purchase more licenses. This one is at its maximum, so I cannot change that. Let's see if this one offers me something.
You can downgrade it.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Here we can cancel the subscription, disable auto renew. I can change the subscription to other options available. And it looks like I can go in this one till 5,000 options. Place the order at this point. The button does not show because of zooming. Click next, and that is how I can advise the customer to do this. I can, of course, also decide, where is it, for this account to do it as a vendor. So I go to billing, I go to customers, all customers, and I search for that ID. Don't you love that? I always love these kind of things. Why? you've seen me touch that customer, right? So not sure why this ID is not visible.
Maybe because it's a reseller from a reseller.
No, as in operations, I see all accounts, every
Oh.
single one of them.
Got it.
So I also see what the vendor is.
Yeah, I
And-
didn't see that you are in operations. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you were still in billing.
On the other hand, if I go to billing and I use all customers, here I should see all customers as well.
Yeah.
At provider level, I should be able to see everything, but never mind. I think that the scenario is clear. I can add resources. Switching to another plan, depending on, and this is depending on the configuration, because as a seller, as a reseller, I can define which paths between plans are possible. So if Microsoft says I can upgrade from E1 to E3 to E5 and back, I, as a reseller, can decide that, hey, I don't want that option and back. I only want them to upgrade. I do not allow them to downgrade. So the first thing that the support people have to say, which plan do you have? And let me check if it's upgradable. Because if it's not upgradable, this customer will start looking for those upgrade option, and it will not be there because the configuration of the plan needs to be set for that. Let me show you. Under upgrades, I need to have that path defined. In this case, the cloud VPS service monthly, I cannot change it because it's basically on its own. If I want another plan, I have to cancel this one and buy another one. So that is a very important thing. A very important thing to realize that it's nice to say, hey, you can change your service plan to another that fits better. Provided that that service plan upgrade path exists. My company wants to increase the price of a business offer. The change must affect only new customers who joined a week ago. How can we do that? You can synchronize prices, and you can do that by date. I can pull synchronizations, meaning that I can go into the subscription itself and synchronize. That means I am pulling in the changes, but I can also push out those changes. I can go to a service plan and update subscriptions, as we call it there. I click this, and you see that all of a sudden there are more options. What do I want? In this case, it was update subscription prices and update the prices of the resources. And it was about subscriptions that started a week ago. So the start date has to be after the 15th. If I update subscriptions now, only subscriptions that have a start date on the 15th or newer will be upgraded to the new price. Anything older will keep their old prices. That's how I can do what we call synchronizations. And from a change perspective, only check the boxes of things that you want to synchronize. If it's prices, make sure that you do this one as well as that one. The subscription sync synchronizes the prices set in the subscription periods tab, and the resource sync synchronizes the resource rate prices. And provided we have a new best practice where we set a zero price for the subscription period, but the prices for the product are basically the result of all the resource rates that are at a minimum of 1 or of 2, this one becomes more and more important above that one. You could even leave that one out because, hey, the subscription period is still free. The box is free. The things in the box cost money. Canceling a subscriptions. Well, this is a tricky one. My company is closing at the end of the year, so we will not need your services anymore. What shall we do? Well, they say you can cancel your subscription and keep in mind that you will pay recurring fees until the cancellation order is processed. But the cancellation done by a customer might be instantaneous. So that's not what the customer is asking for. The customer is asking for closing at the end of the year. In this case, I would almost say that this is closer to this option. Make sure that the expiration date is the end of the year. Because this will be an instantaneous action. You want to cancel? Press the button. You lost access to your subscription. That's not what this customer is asking for. Destroying data. I'm from the legal department of Johnson & Co. After the cancellation of the subscription, we need all critical information to be erased. There is a button after expiration that says destroy data or destroy subscription. Be aware again that this might be relying on the policy again of the vendor. If we try to do this earlier than the end of the hold period at Microsoft, it will not work. Microsoft does simply not allow it. Microsoft has a 30-day grace, a 90-day hold period, and only after that they will destroy that data. We can press that button, destroy, how often we want. That call will never reach Microsoft, or maybe the call will reach it. It will reach an API, but that API does not work. It does not have an endpoint. So you have to be aware that some of the scenarios that we see here might be different from service to service because of the, I would say, limitations or the configuration or the policy of the vendor. So having said that, what questions do you have so far? If none, can I get a thumbs up? Okay, thank you. There are no questions. Let me stop the recording. And let's be back at 45. So let's be back at 1/4 to the hour, giving